Support for this program is provided by the Women's Hospital, providing a complete range of healthcare services to women and infants. More information available at deaconess.com/the Women's Hospital. Toyota Indiana, Pump It Up Evansville, and Gigi's Cupcakes.
Been looking forward to this episode for a while. So we're going to be talking about sex, and if that makes you uncomfortable, I would just go ahead and change the channel now, because we're going to be talking about vaginas and clitoris and orgasms, but it's more than that. We're talking about body function and how our body works, and our body changes over time because of a number of things. Pregnancy, hysterectomy, and age, menopause, and those factors go into how our body changes and how our pelvic floor changes. So it's about sex, but it's a lot more than that.
So we have sensation down there in our clitoris, and who would like to have a little bit more sensation? You?
There's a lot of women out there that want to know about their bodies. They want to know how it works, and maybe they've not explored their bodies and they want to. And there's some women out there that don't want to know, and that's okay. So this may not be for you, but if you want to know more about your body, how it's working, we're gonna talk about these things. Some women have never had an orgasm before, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how to achieve an orgasm and different ways that you can. We're going to talk to Jean Ann a little bit later, and she says that she's met women that are married with children that have never had an orgasm before. And if they don't want one or they don't care how to get it, that's fine. But if they do, we're informing. We're talking about it, and we're kind of demystifying all of these things, if you will.
I got into this about 7 years ago, when I was working all day as a nurse, had a stressful job, and my husband was working evenings, and I would come home and I would be alone. I would be sitting home alone. Little dab goes right on your clitoris. That's all. Just a little dab. And believe me, that is all you need. Plus, I give free batteries for all vibrating toy purchases. So you're locked, loaded, and ready to go when you leave. Okay. Now be careful driving home. I don't want to read about some girl vibing and driving, okay? I could sell Mary Kay. I could do Tupperware, but this is more fun. And I love to educate people, so this is educational for a lot of women. They learn about their bodies, and they learn how to reach an orgasm if they've never had that before. I've taught many girls and told them what toys to use, what to do.
When I talk to people about sex, I'm always surprised. I'm surprised that how little we really know about our bodies, and how little we know about how to manipulate our bodies and how to use our bodies for pleasure.
It's got pheromones in it, so it's going to attract him to your bed. Now, if you don't want him in the bed, you might want to spray it in the garage. Some women feel like it's religiously wrong, like it's not correct for them, or it's not something that they're supposed to do to touch themselves or to enjoy sex, and that's totally wrong. And God, if we're going to go with religion, God gave us this. That was a present to us. The clitoris is the only organ in your body that is truly for pleasure only. It has no other use.
I mean, like, I've been on antidepressants for years and years and years, and it was like my libido just left, and it was like, I don't know. I think that happens a lot more than we think it does.
And sometimes just after childbirth too, after hysterectomies, just sometimes we just lose that drive.
one of the things I'll tell women, because sometimes women come in and they have a deficit in their libido, or they have not had an orgasm. And so you have to relieve the guilt of exploring yourself. That there is absolutely nothing wrong with exploring yourself. How can you navigate your partner to making you happy if you don't know what makes you happy? So we start with that, and at first sometimes it's kind of an embarrassing conversation for them. But they are thirsty for knowledge, and they'll come back and they'll talk about it. And they'll talk about, did this work? Did this make them feel good? How did it feel to really talk to your partner about that? It was a relief.
Women are very uncomfortable. A lot of women are very uncomfortable talking about sex. And they shouldn't feel that way because it's so totally natural. Women, a lot of times, are very quiet about it because their friends are saying how much they enjoy sex. And they don't want to be the one that says, I don't know what that feels like. I've never enjoyed that. Or, they're scared to say that. Did you know that 80% of women cannot orgasm with vaginal penetration alone? They need clitoral stimulation. So if you're one of those, don't feel like you're alone out there when everybody's talking about all their great orgasms and you're like, I don't have any. I have met women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who have never, ever had an orgasm. So it's nice with the parties because when you shop in private, and I can do a one-on-one and answer questions for them and help them with any problems that they're having and kind of lead them in the right direction on what to do.
Okay, let's first talk about the differences between intercourse and orgasm, because those two are very different. You can have intercourse without an orgasm, and you can have an orgasm without intercourse. So I think those facts are very important, because some of my patients who can't have penetration, but yet we still want them to have intimacy with their partners. It's very important. And they can have something we call outer course, where they can have stimulation to that clitoral tissue that we were speaking of, and it can drive that sexual response. They can still get that muscular contraction without any penetration at all. And most women, they have this misconception that they should be able to have an orgasm with intercourse alone. And most people cannot have intercourse or cannot have an orgasm without clitoral stimulation.
I feel like it's hard sometimes to stay focused because life starts creeping in. You have thoughts. Am I the only person that?
You're making your grocery list. You're thinking of everything you have to do the next day. You're thinking of the things you forgot to do the day.
Yeah.
Women, it's all in our head, and our mind is going like 100 miles an hour all the time.
The brain, most definitely. The brain sends more messages to the body than the body does to the brain. So the brain is the biggest sex organ.
80% of women cannot orgasm
through vaginal
penetration. So if guys don't know that, then they're feeling like, what I'm doing isn't working. Why isn't it working?
Why do you think they're not having orgasms, or they've never had one? Why do you think that is?
Women have a lot of problems getting their mind focused, and our men are totally different. They can turn off their mind and just be like that. Women are thinking about everything that they've had to do. They've got a lot of stress. They're thinking about what they need to do tomorrow, and they can get their mind there. And we need to get our mind where it belongs so that we can orgasm.
So maybe you get your first orgasm with this, and then...
Oh, definitely. If you're not reaching orgasm with your partner, you should definitely try a toy. Find out or explore your own body with your fingers and find out what it is that it takes to get there.
Every single woman is different. They are different in their anatomy on the outside and the inside. If you look at a pelvic floor, if you look at a vaginal region, they all look different. I have even family members asking me, okay, I don't look right down there. Something's wrong. Well, what is normal? They're like a face. They're all different, and we have to appreciate the differences and celebrate the differences. And it's not, we shouldn't feel bad about our bodies. I think as women, we have self-body images that tear us apart, that we do ourselves. It's self-inflicted. And that when we think this way, that, our body should look a certain way or feel a certain way, it's such a bad path to go down.
Males reach intimacy through sex. That's their doorway. They oftentimes, when they're close and intimate and having sex with their partner, they feel love, they feel connection. Many times women need the intimacy first. They need to feel like they know their partner accepts their body, any flaws that they seem like they may have, that their partner really knows them. And then they reach intimacy, and then they reach sexual intimacy.
It's not anything to be ashamed of. It's your body, and he's not going to know how to please you if you don't know how to please yourself. Communication is so important with your partner, and you can communicate not just by talking to him. You can show him what feels good for you. You need to explore your body and know what works for you. And then you can show him. It might be just moving his hand while he's touching you, moving his hand to the spot that you want him to touch you, or moving your hand around and showing him what it is, or saying, yes, that feels good, or just a little moan, and so he knows that he's on the right track.
With orgasm, we were talking about achieving it. Well, it involves many systems, the neurological system, the muscular system, the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system. And if we have issues with any of those systems, that can limit our ability to have an orgasm. It may have nothing to do with what you're doing or not doing personally. It may actually be something on the health side. But I think communicating with our partners is huge. And whether it's body language, whether it's talking, telling your partner what you like or you don't like, I think as women, we expect our partners to know. Just, what is supposed to make me happy and what's supposed to get me there to that orgasm. And we don't come with a book, and we are all different. And I think if we communicate, like I said, through body language, through verbalization, those types of things, both of you will be much happier.
So one thing is your G-spot feels different inside of you. It's a different tissue feeling. So if you take your tongue and rub it on your cheek, that's what the inside of you feels like. If you take your tongue and rub it on the roof of your mouth and feel how rough that is, that's what your G-spot feels like. So you'll be able to feel it in there. And it gets more rough and firm as you get stimulated.
Oh, you're talking about that G-spot and then the clitoris.
So there's the clitoris and then there's the G-spot. You're the person
I've never found it. I'm still working on that one.
Why even have it there?
Nobody knows where it is. Well, and maybe it was found by mistake. I'm not sure. That it's a true spot. I don't know. Just when you start poking up in there, I'm just saying, just keeping it honest. Like I said, if you have prolapse or, you have so many women now who have mesh implanted and you have other things that are going on in there and you can actually create pain. So, I don't really talk to my patients about that internal spot. We talk about the surface and they seem to be doing quite well with it. So I guess if they want to find that spot.
Well, one thing I think that I've learned in my practice when talking to women is that to really have a good sex life, the brain is the biggest sex organ. So it's what we think. It's what we think about ourselves, how confident we are. Are we confident? Are we confident enough to show our husband our body, to tell him what we like, to really be open and vulnerable? With a younger woman or with any age woman, there's a lack of confidence. Good sex takes confidence.
This is about romance and being together with your partner and making your relationship last a long time and not becoming stagnant and not becoming a chore. Sex is not a chore that you have to do. This is something that should be enjoyed and make you closer to your partner. There's so many different things to do. You don't have to use a toy in sex. You can do massages. What's the most important thing to remember about a massage?
I know. You let him give yours first.
That's right. You get yours first, then it leads to sex, and then you guys go to sleep, and you don't have to rub him at all. It's worked for me for 18 years now.
A lot of times I'll say, do you massage each other? Do you touch each other different places? And they're like, no. Well, what's the biggest organ in the body? The biggest organ in the body is the skin. And does it feel different when somebody touches your hand than your leg or your ear or your mouth? Of course it does. But a lot of times we just have not explored those things.
Do you know that 5% of women can orgasm with just nipple stimulation alone?
No.
And if you're one of them, don't tell me because I don't like you.
So is it all about the orgasm?
No, I don't believe that sex is all about the orgasm. And women love to be touched and held and the closeness with sex. And it doesn't have to be about an orgasm. A woman can enjoy sex without an orgasm.
And kissing's a big thing. When I talk to people, I go, how often do you kiss your mate? And they're like, oh, like when I'm leaving the house. Well, what kind of kiss is that? Is that a deep, passionate kiss? That's one thing we do when we're dating. So some of those things we leave out, and some of those things are like flirting. We forget to flirt, and we forget how fun flirting is. So a lot of it, I think, is knowing your body, knowing what feels good in your body, and getting your head in the game.
Not every woman, it's not all perfect, and their body mechanics are changing, like I said, because of menopause or hysterectomy, or they've had a baby, and that pelvic floor is changing. Sometimes their clitoris changes into a different place, or all these body functions have moved. And so, and even sex is painful. People are peeing when they're laughing, or people are peeing when they're at the gym. And, a lot of women are going through this. If you're a woman and you have these issues and you're not wanting to talk to your doctor about it, we're kind of, giving you the information, and maybe giving you just the permission to feel okay to talk about it. Who told us about these things? Who taught us about orgasms, or what those body functions do, or how you use them? Because usually it's two young people figuring it out themselves, right?
The pelvic floor is a mass of muscle and connective tissue that basically runs from your pubic bone back to your tailbone or sacrum area. It connects on the sides of the pelvis as well, 5 layers of that muscle and connective tissue. They're voluntary muscles, so believe it or not, we do or should have control of that muscle tissue. And that's just going to connect to the probe that is in the vagina, and then this. Yes, I think that a lot of women are a little confused or don't really understand the different body parts and their uses. I know when they come to physical therapy, they're questioning why they're in a physical therapist's office, but they don't even realize that they have a mass of muscle and connective tissue between their legs. And as physical therapists, we're muscle specialists, so there's a lot that can go wrong with that muscle tissue down there. Equivalent to a hamstring strain, you can have a strain of your pelvic floor muscles just the same. Actually, there's 2 big times in a woman's life that we see the biggest change in that muscle tissue that can change her ability to have intercourse and her ability to have orgasm. One, obviously, being childbearing and childbirth. Whether a woman has a vaginal birth or a cesarean section, really both of those will lengthen and change her muscle tissue. And without some effort of trying to regain that strength, it's not magical. It doesn't just re-strengthen on its own. So it does take a little bit of effort, and really a little bit of knowledge goes a long way. And really even preparing those muscles prior to childbirth and childbearing is the way to go. They stretch better if you do have a vaginal birth. They recover more quickly postpartum. The second time that we see the biggest change is during the menopausal years. That tissue is going under great change with the lack of estrogen. It can become thinned out. Definitely lubrication is an issue. So we're kind of fighting those battles at those 2 big times in our life. And then if we're not taking care of the tissues during those times in life, it can lead to some lengthy periods of difficulty with intercourse, difficulty with intimacy, and can really change your quality of life. And then one of my favorites is lubrication. And I even tell my patients who are younger, if you're thinking about 10 things that are going on in your life while you're trying to get in the mood to have intercourse, it's probably not going to happen. We're not going to be well lubricated. Our tissues are not going to have great blood flow to them, so we're not going to be super successful. If we're not well lubricated, we need to use some lubrication. It's like the Gatorade of the vagina. What we're going to be doing is looking at the resting tone of your muscles. When I'm asking you to lay here and relax the muscles, we want to make sure that you can fully relax them when you're trying to relax them. Good. Pelvic floor tone, we look at it and we say, okay, well, here in Southern Indiana, we call it the Kegel. So Dr. Kegel was the one who actually invented that. And really, the Kegel itself is very important. And really, it's important in just identifying where those muscles are, how can you properly contract the muscle tissue and relax the muscle tissue. The pelvic floor muscles, especially the superficial layer, the layer closest to the skin, those muscles actually have a connection on the clitoral tissue. And clitoral tissue is basically a ball of nerves. And when that tissue is stimulated, it drives that sexual response. It'll draw blood flow into the area, and as those tissues become filled with blood and the clitoral tissue around it becomes filled with blood, it's even easier to stimulate. So imagine where that probe is right now. You're almost trying to grab around it with the muscles. Those muscles are going to encircle that probe. Okay. Grab around it and pull that inside. We want to try to avoid bearing down. Relax. Correct. And squeeze. Hold, hold, hold. Pull that hammock in. Holding, breathing. Try to pull it up further. Relax. That's hard. It is difficult. So we do get that report that when women have strengthened their pelvic floor muscles, that they actually have a stronger orgasm, and it's easier to develop the orgasm. It doesn't take as long. The stimulation is different. So there are some definite added benefits to strengthening those muscles. Pelvic floor issues can start at such a young age. I know even with high impact sports like volleyball, basketball, soccer, that there's as high as 25 to 30% of those young girls who are leaking urine already. So they're already kind of some precursors set in that they're going to have some dysfunction in their pelvic floors. So by intervening and talking in these classes, speaking to these young women about that this is an important part of their body early on in life, and when they do strength training, we have to strength train these muscles as well, and this is how we do it. Whether you're coming here for osteoporosis or you're coming here for pelvic pain, we're talking about your pelvic floors. And I think that we can't talk about it enough. It's that crucial. It's in the center of our body. It holds so many good things for us, and it can definitely provide great quality of life for us if we take care of it.
How do we even know how to do a Kegel? We even learn it in a magazine or talk about it with our friends, so I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. The first thing is to identify those muscles. So if you can stop urination midstream, then you found those muscles. The second thing is to practice them. It's easier if you empty your bladder and try to tighten those muscles, keeping for 5 seconds, and then the more that you do them, you can do more repetitions and hold that for longer. For best results, try not to tighten your ab muscles or your thighs or your buttocks.
I have had quite a wild youth, which I have no regrets about, mostly because I got through it safely, and it was back in the day when there weren't nearly as many worries as there are now. Little did I know that the best years of my sexuality were coming. I did not know that then, and that's not in any way meant to be disparaging. And I met, at that time, my now husband. It's been 20 years. He's my soulmate. He's my true love. When we began to touch, it was the most intimate experience of our lives, and we had this rock and roll sex life, and that's what we used to call it. I have always been a hard body. I've always been a fit. I used to compete in triathlon and such, and but 58 with fewer estrogen molecules floating around, skin changes. It's like, yikes. I look, and loving myself now has been a daily invitation. But my brain and my vagina began to change. And for the first time ever, it wasn't quite as juicy. And by it, I mean just overall sex and, of course, my vagina. And there was a little bit of discomfort. And it's like I was used to anytime, anywhere, sure. And I've always been flat and small-breasted. But now I'm saggy, flat and small-breasted, So, it's all, it's a real gift to myself. And I have to constantly re-invite myself to be in love in spite of these physical changes. And my husband, he's so lovely. He adores me, and he finds me really attractive. And again, I think if goodness gracious, I couldn't imagine being in a relationship where you weren't adored and weren't revered and weren't, hey, babe, you look so hot, and I hear that. So that really helps. So physically, there's these outside changes. For me, it's all been my vaginal tissue. And it is so thin that, a pap smear, a finger, my applicator for my cream, it's not pleasant. And it's just mind-boggling to me, but it's this really thin tissue. Not bleeding is lovely. Not having my periods, fabulous. I mean, I'm all about that. And that's been about 2.5 years. That I love. But to know that in spite of my radiant health, because I eat well, I exercise, but my vagina didn't keep up, and what can I do about it? I'm doing what I can supplement-wise, certainly caring for myself physically on all the other levels. But if my vaginal tissue is not going to snap to anymore, which it's certainly not doing, I can't do anything more than what I'm doing. Apparently, it's all about your vagina hurting, not only during sex, but like for hours afterwards. And mine does, when we're done, my discomfort is done. So, and the discomfort level varies, mind you. It depends, as I mentioned. So I don't have a disease. I'm just a mature woman now, and I'm dealing with it as best as I can. Love your woman no matter what, and for a man to understand that the love and desire may be there emotionally and spiritually, physically it does change. And of course, men have their own changes as well. Be prepared for her to be emotional and to say, well, I'm just not feeling it, or my vagina hurts, or my nipples are no longer that excitable, or whatever she's going to come up with. Those honest conversations are so powerful, and they will lead to more intimacy.
So we had this party, and it was fun, and we laughed, and we learned something, and it was crazy. And there's a place for that if you want it. If you like toys and you want some aid in getting an orgasm or bringing these things into your sex life, awesome. But maybe you don't, and that's okay too. Maybe you're fulfilled in your sex life with your partner, or your passion with your partner, and that's great too. And that's what it's all about. There are a lot of people out there that just love touch and that love connection with their partner and just want to be with their partner, and that is so important. And I've learned that as couples get older and they've been together longer, maybe they don't have sex as often, but it's more meaningful when they do. Are you looking at your partner? Are you touching your partner? Do you see your partner? Are you communicating with your partner? I mean, that's what it's all about. The mind-blowing orgasm is great. Everybody likes the big O, right? It's like this thing out there, right? And like, if you've had one, great. If you haven't, you don't know what that's like. But it's so much more than that. And, I can get really surface level and just talk about sex and orgasms, but it's deeper. It's the connection that you have with your partner. That's why we're talking about this. That's why this is important.
Support for this program is provided by the Women's Hospital, providing a complete range of healthcare services to women and infants. More information available at deaconess.com/the Women's Hospital. Toyota Indiana, Pump It Up Evansville, and Gigi's Cupcakes.